Hi everyone, welcome to Hoop Club box 23. So our 23rd box, that is unbelievable. This month we are stitching a kit which is kind of like a sister kit to the kit we stitched in our second box. So this is the design and it's from Zoe of Junebug and Darlin, and this was the original design that we stitched in box 2. So some of you might have been around when we stitched this one. So it's a lovely floral cross stitch. Cross stitch is just so mindful and relaxing, just having to count out that pattern onto the fabric and count out your squares. There's just something about that and kind of seeing the design build and come to life that is just so satisfying and relaxing. So I'm hoping you're enjoying this one. It's very simple, but I'm going to go through the basics with you and we'll just have a look at what else was in the box as well. So this was our box. Oh, the sun is coming in. But this is box 23, and you also got this copy of Love Embroidery magazine in your pack, in your parcel this month. And this little extra that we've put in is this lovely pale blue knee thread sorter. So you can do it for this project, but you can just attach on your different coloured threads to keep them separate. So that's included. We've got our thread and then our fabric, wood, cardboard back, needle, wadding and hoop, and your instructions in this little book. So everything you need to know is in here, but I'm going to go through it with you now. So the first thing we're doing is getting our fabric into the hoop. So you need to unscrew the hoop. Best to do this on a table or a surface. Then you get your bigger hoop on the top of the fabric, then push it over the smaller hoop, and then what you're trying to do is just tighten that screw until your fabric is lovely and taut and is a bit like a drum. So you want it to be really nice and tight. It's just easier to work with when it's nice and tight. So that's your fabric. Then the way we do cross stitch, so if you've not done one of our cross stitch kits before, you've just done the printed fabric kits, then cross stitch works a little bit differently in that we've got this diagram here. The red cross marks the middle of the diagram, and what you're going to do is just be building up your pattern with crosses onto this fabric and using the middle of the pattern as a guide as to where to start. So what we do is pick one of these kind of one of these squares that's right near the center of the red cross and use that as our starting point. I would suggest using these green elements of the big flower to start as your starting point. And then once you've got that kind of context on the fabric, then you can start building in all these different elements. So counting as you go, always counting, always looking at what colour you're adding, how many stitches you're putting in, and that's going to help you build up your pattern. So we're splitting our thread. So embroidery floss comes in 6 strands. You can see there the different strands, and you just want to pull apart 2 of those strands. So it just basically, if you pull it slowly, it will come apart, and we're stitching with 2. So we want to thread the needle with 2 strands of thread. The length of my thread is about 50 centimeters long. I've got my thread, I'm ready to go. I'm going to just work out where I'm going to start. So I'm going to start here on this square of turquoise. I'm just going to count along. I know that I'm going to start roughly in the middle of my hoop, and I know I want to stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and a half stitch. 11 and a half for my first row. So I'm just going to start right in the middle. I've tied a knot in my thread and I'm doing my first diagonal, bottom to top, left to right, and then crossing it back the other way. And the important thing is to keep the direction of your stitches consistent throughout the whole piece. So if you start doing your first diagonal left to right, always do that, because it will look slightly different if you kind of mix up doing kind of whether that bottom stitch is left to right or right to left. It makes it just look a whole lot kind of more consistent and neat if you do the same. So I'm doing my crosses. I'm going to build up to 11.5 on this first, and then I'll go back to the pattern and I'll recount what the next line is. Some people like to do all of the bottom kind of diagonals first and then go back over and cross them, and you could do that. I find it easier to do each cross at a time, otherwise I kind of feel like I lose track of where I am. So really, that is as simple as cross stitch is. The half stitches at the end are literally, you just do one bit of the cross, you don't cross it, and it gives you that kind of angle and a bit of, you're able to create a bit of a curve in the pattern when you use a half stitch. So that is basically how I cross stitch. I'm sure there are a million ways that people cross stitch. You can arrive at the same kind of finished product using a few different methods, but this is the way that I do it. And then you are just building up the colours. So this is the bit that I was starting on here, and then I would just build up that whole green bit, and then I just start to add on the different bits of colour. So once you've got one shape placed on your hoop, then it's just much easier. Oh, I've got that the wrong way around. It's much easier then to add on the next bits. What I was going to show you is in this version we have, oh, actually not even on this version, but in the finished version, I'll find a picture. We have Zoe has included in her design some detail on the leaves where you backstitch with a contrasting colour over the leaves, and I thought that would look really nice on some of the leaves in this. So I'm just going to show you how I do that. So really with this technique you're just freestyling, and over these mustard leaves I'm going to do some back stitches. Now you can make them as short or as long as you want. You could go the whole length of the leaf in one go. So I've just kind of given that little leaf a bit of extra detail, which I think looks really nice. And then I'm going to do it, you should ideally tie off your thread and then jump over to this next one. But just to show you, I'm going to go down this next leaf, and it's a back stitch that I'm using. So I'm going down for a stitch and then coming back over. And then back over again. And then you could even do some little stems of the leaf like this. You could map it out actually if you were not as confident just doing it on the fly like I'm doing. You could draw out where you want your back stitch to go on the diagram, on the instructions that we've given you. But I've just used the green, the khaki green. I'm sorry about the state of my nails. I need a manicure. So yeah, I might put one extra in here. I think that looks really sweet. So you're kind of customizing your own little kit. Yeah, and you could even add some French knots in, like the way we've done here. Zoe's included some French knots there, but you could include some extra kind of little branches or add some French knots where these bits are. It's up to you. And once again, when you've finished your piece, you need to trim the fabric. So it's about 2 to 3 centimetres around the edge. Then we put our piece of wadding in, and then fold the fabric over, and then you push in your cardboard disc, which to be just the right size to hold without any glue, and it makes your finished piece just look lovely and kind of padded and quilted. But that's your finished box 23 project, and the PDF has been sent to you, so you've got an extra project to do as well if you want to do that and transfer your own fabric onto your own fabric. But I hope you enjoy it.